Welcome to Maximize Your True Potential, Strategies for Success, hosted by Ken Kingstead. Part 4, Non-Confrontational Selling Through the PACE Lead Funnel. This series will give you the edge to recognize and then achieve your goals through its philosophy of constant, never-ending improvement. Strategies that will become a fluid part of who you are. Maximize your true potential. Strategies for success. Your first step to success, beyond your imagination.
Welcome back. I want to say thank you so much for putting some time aside for yourself to grow your business. Hey, listen, first off, most importantly, the quality of your life is in proportion to the quality of your communication. Realize that, okay? Buying a car is a huge process. People are going through many, many different phases in their search for an automobile. Let's just think of this here, for example. Back in 1995, there was over 900 makes and models, okay? In the year 1999, it jumped up to 1,100 makes and models. In the year 2002, it went even further, went to 1,300 different makes and models. And let's confuse it even further. In 1995, the medium price automobile was $20,000 bucks. In 1999, it jumped up to $22,775. And just last year, it was over $25,000. So there's a lot of information out there in terms of gathering up. Because let's face it, when you buy a car and you're spending $25,000 bucks, what are you going to do? I want you to jump on the internet yourself and read consumer reports and do some research yourself so you don't make a mistake. The biggest fear a customer has is this. It's buying the wrong car. The number two biggest fear they have is paying too much money for the wrong car. What's worse than that? Okay? So what we need to be able to do is to sell ourselves to our customers. And believe it or not, people judge you within 30 seconds. Is that fair? Heck, no, it's not fair, but it's reality. People are doing it. So with all these resources and all this information in terms of pricing and so forth, what happens? The time it takes to buy a car is stretched out longer and longer and longer. And the last heard from NADA last year, it's over 21 days is the buying cycle. That means from the time someone says, you know what, I got to buy a car, to the time they sign and they buy that car is about 3 weeks. That's a long time. Just a handful of years ago, it was 3 days or 72 hours. So with a changing market the way it is, what do we have to do? We've got to learn to be better consultants. Not necessarily salespeople, but better consultants. Remember, seek first to understand before trying to be understood. I can't overemphasize that. People are judging you, so we have to seek first to understand that customer, truly understand them, before trying to be understood ourselves and why they should buy our product. Does that make sense, everybody? So we understand that. We got to understand that how do you get the customer to open up to you, to trust you, to want to give you this information. And that's not so easy, okay? In order to do that, we have to develop a communication scheme, if you will, or process. And what I mean by that is that I believe we developed a program called Pacing and Leading, okay? And pacing and leading is the ability to develop trust and understanding with our customers, verbally, okay? In other words, a pace would be something like this here. You know, I can appreciate the fact that you want to gather up some information today. That's an alignment. That's an agreement to your customer. Another pace would be some sort of a compliment. You know, I understand the fact that you want to do your homework, and I don't blame you. This is a big process you're going through today, and I would do the same thing if I was in your shoes. When a customer comes into your dealership and they want the very best price, what do you tell them? Anything other than giving them an alignment or an agreement is the wrong thing to do. In other words, we've been taught for years to always answer a question with a what? With a question, right? Think about how would you feel? You walk into a Best Buy or a Circuit City and you say, hey, what's your best price on this particular big screen TV? And they say, well, how much do you want to pay for it? How would you feel? I would feel upset about that. I'd be like, wait, time out. How much does it cost? So when someone comes into your dealership and they say to you, hey, what's your best price on this vehicle? A better way of handling that might be, hey, yes, I understand that price is important to you. Let's face it, you know, obviously you've done your homework and that makes good sense. Buying a car is a big decision. Share with me your thoughts. Target budget range-wise, where were you hoping to be? Again, I've complimented a bit there before asking the customer where they were hoping to be. And I'm telling you, when you do that, it sets them more at ease in terms of talking to you. And the perception to you isn't a negative one. It's like you're really trying to consult with them and educate them because you're just like them. You're a customer too, aren't you? Absolutely. All right, so do me a favor. Take your right hand and your left hand. Put your hands up like this here and put them together. What I want you to do is take your right hand and go ahead and push on your left hand. Go ahead, push. What's happening? Your hands are staying there in one place, aren't they? But what should have happened was this. The left hand should have been pushed over. Why? I said take your right hand, put it on your left hand, and push. And what happens is this, your hand should have went across. The reason it didn't is because when we push ourselves, we end up pushing back even on ourselves. So when someone asks a question and you ask a question back to them, are you pushing the customer? Or are you aligning with them? Are you pulling them? If we're going to sell and communicate in today's era of buying and selling cars, we have to better guide our customers by serving them. Looking at sales now, what truly is selling? Is selling really just, by a definition, what does it mean? I'll tell you what Webster's defined it as. Selling means to serve. Ironically, it was hard to really kind of understand that when I first read it myself. I thought it was to convince someone of my way of thinking, using persuasive techniques. But that's not what it really means. What selling means is to serve. Think about this for a minute. If you go out to a restaurant and you get great service, what do? Do you leave a good tip? Is a tip a commission, if you will, to a waiter or waitress? I think it is. If you get bad service, what do? You don't leave much of a tip. At least I don't. My wife kind of sometimes gets a little upset with me for that. But hey, you know what? If the food's bad and she doesn't come back or he doesn't come back and take care of me and, it's a lousy experience, heck, if I want a lousy experience, I'll cook the food myself, But if I go to a restaurant, I want a great experience, right? That's why you're going out to eat. And if I don't get that experience, what do? Well, I leave a tip that's in proportion to that person's ability to serve, okay? So my point here is this. When I learned that it meant to serve, I thought about, success leaves clues in life. And so does failures. You guys all agree with that? People who are successful, if you can model that person, what would happen? You'd probably produce an outcome that is very similar to the one that they're producing. Now, if you got someone selling 20 cars a month, if you did exactly what they did, day in and day out for a month, what would happen? You'd probably sell 20 cars. If you had someone selling 5 cars a month, and you did exactly what they did day after day, and through the entire month, you'd probably end up selling how many cars? Probably 5. My point here is this. How do we treat our best friend? If they came in to buy a car from us, would you treat them poorly? Would you rush the process? Or would you slow down and have fun and educate them and make them feel good about the buying experience? That's what you would do. If your mom or dad or your grandpa or your grandmother came in to buy a car from you, how would you treat them? Again, you would serve them, wouldn't you? And as you serve them, what would happen? Man, they would just fall in love with the product, and what would happen then? They'd buy your product. Why don't we treat everybody that way? If you treated everybody that way, what would happen? Would your numbers go up or would they go down? I promise you they'd go up. But how do we do that? How can we consciously be thinking about serving every customer like we would our parents or our best friend every time? I'll tell you what, we developed a program called Pacing and Leading. Strange name, PACE. I'm referring to pacing ourselves. In a race, if you ever ran a long-distance run, you don't just sprint off the line, you pace yourself through the race. Does that make sense? Well, in the selling process, of course we want the commission. We want to end the race right up at the front. Here to buy a car today? How much you want to spend? What's your credit look like? Man, we're going for the throat in the first few moments. Is that smart? Probably not. Again, J.D. Powers had given an example in just the latest study. They said that 26% of the customers that left the dealership left for one reason, a bad experience with the salesperson. So realizing that's what J.D. Powers has come up with recently, we need to understand what can we do to alleviate that from happening to us. So a PACE is the ability to develop trust and understanding with your customer. And how do you do that? You do it by aligning with them or agreeing with them or complimenting them. And when you do that, it's like, think of this, a checking account. Every time you align or agree or compliment, it's like giving that customer a $25 check. That makes sense? Every time you make a withdrawal, if you ask a question, give a statement or opinion or a suggestion, that's like pulling out $50 out of their emotional checking account. So if we've always asked questions and questions and questions to the customers, are we putting anything in? Why would they want to answer and answer and answer all of these questions? There's no trust there. There's no rapport. There's no respect there. So when someone comes in and says to you, just give me your best price, how can we handle that? We developed a process, just like 1 + 1 is 2, and 2 × 2 is 4. We put together a little formula ourselves. And it goes like this. You got level 1. Level 1 says, pace plus a pace plus a pace minus a lead. Okay, now remember, a pace equals $25. A lead, on the other hand, it equals 50, subtracting $50. So if someone says, you know what, I don't want to look around a little bit, come back with, hey, I understand you want to look around. That makes good sense. There's a ton of choices out there, and it's definitely confusing. Let's make today an information day. Are you looking for a car, a truck, or an SUV? See, I've made 3 solid $25 deposits into their emotional checking account. So I put $75 in. I've earned the right now to ask a question worth $50. Looking for a car, truck, or SUV. It's the same question you would have asked anyway, okay? But let's ask it intelligently. Let's not ask the question unintelligently. Unintelligently just means how much you want to spend. What are you looking for? A car, truck, SUV. Build on that. Let them understand that you care, that you empathize with them. Not sympathize, but that you empathize. He comes back or she comes back with, I'm looking for an SUV. Okay, let's go to level 2 then. Level 2 says what? It says pace plus another pace minus a lead. Now we can kick out one of the actual paces. Why? Because we've got some equity there. Our checkbook isn't starting at 0. We've got $25 worth of equity we're going to carry down over here. You remember? We put 75 in and we took 50 out. So we got some equity here of $25. So we carry the $25 down and we add $50 more to it before we make our withdrawal. So he says, oh, I'm looking for an SUV. Hey, great choice. Man, I love SUVs, and I've got one myself, so I know quite a bit about those. By the way, you looking for a 4x4 or a 2-wheel drive? Again, we're still qualifying the customer, aren't we? We're still doing some fact-finding with this customer, but we're doing it which way? An intelligent way. The customer's sitting back, and he actually feels like he's going through a comfortable process with you. He's not going through an interrogation. He feels actually comfortable with you actually asking these questions. Why? Because you're telling him how smart he is. People need to be told how smart they are because it is a confusing process. It is tough deciding which vehicle to choose from. Think about it once. SUVs by themselves, how many choices do you have out there? 20 or 30? And you're telling him, good choice. SUV is an awesome vehicle. I've got one myself. How does he feel about you being in the car business, saying now that you have one yourself, if you have one? If you don't have one, my dad has one, my friend has one. Throw that credibility on someone that you know personally, because then they think that they're smart too, because you being in the business, saying that they've done their homework and that makes good sense, makes them feel what? Better towards you. Would you agree? SUVs, hey, great choice. Man, I love SUVs. I've got one myself, and man, I really enjoy driving it. Now, by the way, did you want a 4x4 or a 2-wheel drive? No, I want a 4x4. Okay, that's the answer to the question. So let's go to level 3 now. Level 3 says what? Obviously, it says pace right to the lead. Now listen, equity over here, remember, 75, we had $25 to equity. We carried it down, didn't we? We can now put 75 here at the bottom of number 2, take out 50, we got 25 left over, add 25 down here again. $50 minus $50 equals what? We're at even money. We didn't go in the red. We're still at even money. We're at 0, okay? But the question really comes down to is, how do they feel at this point about you? Do they feel good? Do they feel bad? Now analyze this. Currently, how am I doing it? And how do my customers feel about me? With the new way of talking about it, what I'm doing right now, how do they feel? Again, put yourself in the customer's shoes. And how do you think you'd feel dealing with someone like myself talking this way to you? Would you feel more at ease? You betcha. Am I selling Ken Kingstad? You betcha. Am I selling the car yet? Not at all. I'm developing a relationship with my customer so they like me. So I can, when I do give them advice on where to go or what car to choose, there's some credibility. There's some weight to what I'm suggesting. Not just some salesperson. I'm actually a consultant serving this customer so they feel good about dealing with me. Is this making sense? Good. Because now we're going to carry this down one step further to level 4. And that's just the lead. And as you can see here, we are funneling this whole thing down. We're funneling it down to a what? Hopefully here, a sale. We don't have to do as much pacing as we move down the line in this process. Now what happens though, hypothetically, if in fact the customer puts a red flag up and they start getting irritated down here or even right here? Go back to the top again. It's like 1 plus 1. It works. Now some of you in this room here, do this automatically, instinctually. But I promise you this here, do you do it 1, 2, 3 times instinctually? No. I would say that you probably do it once or maybe twice instinctually, okay? But to get 3 comfortable, solid $25 paces out there in a row, guess what's happening? You have to prepare yourself for something like this here. A lot of practice, a lot of drill, a lot of rehearsing has to happen for us to be conditioned so when someone throws an objection at us, we can respond intelligently. So we're a consultant, not just a salesperson. Follow this? It's making sense. Okay, fantastic. So again, I'll give you an example of a few other objections you may encounter. Hey, what's your best price? I understand price is important to you. Heck, it ought to be important to you. It's important to me as well. Share with me your thoughts. Target budget range-wise, where were you hoping to be on a vehicle like this here? Again, the same question I've always used, but yet I've put some deposits in here to kind of buffer, if you will, that objection or that question that I asked them. How about, I got to go home and talk to my wife. Hey, I don't blame you. I do the same thing. Buying a car like this here is a big decision, and you probably want to sit down and talk to your wife and kind of lay everything out and so forth so you make a good, logical decision for both you and your family. Other than talking to your wife, though, what's holding us back from moving forward right now? Again, we're saying the same thing we normally would say, but you know what? How does the customers perceive the way I'm asking it now? In a more favorable light, would you agree? We can go on and on and on, but the biggest thing I want you to practice on is writing out and really developing your skills in this area. And there's a ton of them. I can understand. I am on your side. Good for you. I would do the same thing. Shopping is an important part of the process. I bought a camera myself just a month ago, and me and my wife sat down and laid out a budget for ourselves. And these are just little bitty paces that we can expound on, right? If, in fact, we practice, drill, and rehearse these particulars, okay? And by definition, a pace means to align or agree or complement, like I said earlier. And a lead is, again, to ask a question, a statement, or opinion, or give a suggestion. These are what a lead and a pace is, okay? But we don't want to put the word but into our vocabulary. Like, listen to this here, for example. Hey, I understand you want to go home and talk to your wife, but, what's holding us back right now from making a decision? What does the but do? When you use that word but, it negates, doesn't it? It says that you really don't care about what you just said prior to that word but. I understand you got a budget, but how much do you want to spend? I understand you want to go down the road and look at the Toyota, but what's wrong with the vehicle right here? Or whatever we're saying, the but negates what we said prior to the word but. Instead of but, use the word and. I understand you want to go, do your homework, and that makes good sense. I can appreciate you want to go home and kind of lay out your information and make a good logical decision. And I do the same thing if I was in your shoes. The difference is that the and connects their thought to your thought, and that means credibility is bridged. So and builds bridges, but actually builds walls. And we know this from being in the car business. There's a ton of walls already up. We don't want to reinforce those walls. We want to knock those walls down so we can have a good conversation with our customers to develop a trust and understanding in this process of buying a car. Does that make sense? Okay. What I want us to do is practice. I want to practice writing out some paces. So here's your homework. I want you to think of maybe 3 objections. Possibly, let's say, give me your best price could be the objection. I want you to think of writing out 3 paces to that objection. How about this one here? I just want to look around a little bit. You ever see the old stop sign in the face? Just let me alone. I want to look around a little bit. How can we overcome that? Give me 3 paces to that. Or how about the phone call? Hey, I'm looking for XYZ vehicle. Okay? Do you have one in stock? And if you do, how much does it cost? How do you overcome these objections? I want you to write down 3 paces for each of these challenges. And then I want you to look at some things outside the car business, because do you think this is good for, the real world as well? Not just for business, but like maybe in your family, possibly, in your friendships and so forth, with your friends and so forth? How about if you got pulled over by a police officer, right? What could you do to pace the police officer into letting you go instead of giving you a ticket? Interesting concept. How about, let's say you're married and your spouse and you're having a little bit of an argument. What can you do to overcome the argument? Through pacing and leading. Say you have some kids. Your kids don't want to do their homework. They want to go play outside, right? How can you pace and lead your child into doing their homework or cleaning their room instead of running outside. Again, the quality of your life is in proportion to the quality of your communication. Seek first to understand before trying to be understood. That's a Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So listen, this has been a really awesome opportunity for me to really passionately give you what I feel to be the cornerstone of all of our call principles, and all of our dialogue is built around the PACE lead process. So listen, review this tape again and again and again until you're completely comfortable, until you're unconsciously competent with utilizing these skills, okay? Until next time, keep up the hard work. Take care.